Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men Volume 2 Adjectiveless X-Men number 21, cover dated June 1993. So the cover here by Brandon Peterson and Dan Panosian, featuring the two Psylockes, and we have a name for the new Psylocke, who is physically the old Psylocke pre going through the Siege Perilous, and that is Revanche here. Psylocke here, and then the caption also says Gambit, and he does feature in this issue. And the caption, the puzzle quest, because the puzzle is, who is the real Psylocke? Now, before I open this one up, just want to say I don't think that this is Brandon Peterson's strongest cover. I think the cover design here is not fantastic. I think it would have been better to put the two Psylockes front and center so that we could get a good look at Revanche's costume rather than hidden behind here and obscured behind Gambit. But in any case, let's open this one up to the splash page, and we have the title of the story, The Puzzle Box. We've got a nice use of a screen tone here in the background, and we've got Wolverine, who else's fist here, with two claws extended, and is the third one about to pop, and a very unhappy looking Psylocke. So let's have a read through these narrative captions. She called herself Betsy Braddock as the telepathic mutant codenamed Psylocke. She has been their friend, their companion, their fellow warrior. She has lived among them, fought beside them, and laughed and cried with them. In short, she was a part of the whole. 6 seconds ago, the X-Men discovered everything they thought they knew about her is a lie, and one burning question gnaws at them, posed by a gravelly smoke-stained voice. So, Bets, just who the heck are you then? Let's open to the double page half splash here with Wolverine grimacing, looking quite angry, and Psylocke here not looking too pleased herself. And she responds to him, "I do not need to answer that question, Logan. We've shared each other's deepest, darkest thoughts and deeds. You know who I am." And she's referring there to the non-team era, all the way from issue 258 of Uncanny X-Men to when they hooked up again with the rest of the team during the Extinction Agenda. Sure, we do share, says Gambit, but you got to understand why we'd be more than a little confused. Nay. So, he wasn't there at the end of the previous issue, but he has popped up now. And interesting to see this questioning about Psylocke and her bona fides. So the creative team here, Stan Lee presents A Tale of the X-Men by Fabian Nicieza, writer, and Brandon Peterson, penciler, Dan Panosian, inker, Bill Oakley, letterer, and Joe Rosas, colorist. And we're still with this computer, as far as I'm concerned, digital computer separated color. It's not being officially recognized yet, but certainly the color separations here are not the old hand-separated colors that existed about a year ago on the title. So Psylocke says, if anyone should be questioned right now, it is her. And this is this new, unexpected, older version of herself who says, "I am Betsy Braddock, in soul and most obviously in flesh. The X-Men believe me and appear to have sufficient reason to doubt you." Now, let's continue here. So, what are the X-Men doing to get to the bottom of this? Well, first and foremost, Professor X is the most powerful mutant mind on the planet, and he says that it's not as simple as psi scanning them, because there are no surface psi differences between the two women. To find out the truth, we would have to dig far deeper into their minds. And he says, "I'm loath to do so, especially in a mind as psi-sensitive as Psylocke's." And the new character says, "Though we've never met until today, Professor," because of course Psylocke didn't meet the Professor when she joined the X-Men way back in Uncanny X-Men 213, because Professor X was off in Shi'ar space. And so she never met him. And she says, "I willingly submit myself to your probe." So Psylocke thinks, "Oh, masterfully played. Well, Charles, I will not allow you to violate me." And why is that? She says, Not because her accusations have any validity to them. I've suffered too many indignities at the hands of others. First Slaymaster, then Mojo, and after emerging from the Siege Perilous, I was shredded body and soul by Matsuo Tsurayaba. And that's in Uncanny X-Men 256 to 258, reviews of which are on the channel. And she says, I won't allow anyone to tear through the layers of my mind, my memories, my very self, ever again. And Jean asks, is that why you've adopted such a aggressive attitude with the use of your telepathic powers? That would be the focus totality of her telepathic powers, her psychic knife, yes? And she says, in response to Jean, never a victim, always a victor, Jean. That's also why I chose to strike at you in the previous issue when you accused me of having an affair with Cyclops. You've all accepted that I'm not the woman I once was. And then the new Psylocke strikes at her with her psychic katana, and they determine to finish it. But the professor intervenes and says, stop, there will be none of that in my home. Is that understood? So Wolverine asks to talk to Professor X outside, privately, and here they have a chat. So it's not just that Professor X with his surface size scans can't determine a difference between the two women. Wolverine says, as he lights up his cigar, obviously the professor doesn't have a no smoking rule for Wolverine, and he says neither of them is lying and neither of them is telling the truth. Their scents are the same and different, from Betsy Braddock's before she went through the Siege Perilous, and just now when Psylocke prepared an offensive countermove, Betsy Braddock set up a pretty smooth ground to sky draw, standard ninjutsu defense. So the professor says, the Betsy Braddock the X-Men worked with before my return was no ninja disciple, was she? And you did not teach her such techniques. Where could she have come by this knowledge then? So Wolverine says, I'm thinking there's only one way you're going to find out the truth. They're going to have to go to Japan. So this is some nice art by Brandon Peterson here, but I will make this one criticism of this anchor image of Wolverine. He looks too tall in the image, and the perspective is off for the professor coming through this door as well. He should be a little bit more off the ground, a little larger, and Wolverine should look a little bit smaller as well. But however, nice work by Peterson up to this point. And then we pick up with Cyclops, who at the end of the previous issue left on a leave of absence to go visit his grandparents in Alaska. And as far as I can make out, the last time they were seen in X continuity was back in Uncanny X-Men 175 for Scott and Madeline's wedding. And the first time that Scott and Alex discovered that they had living grandparents, Corsar's parents, was back in Uncanny X-Men 168. So here he is arriving in Anchorage, and his grandparents are there. Philip and Deborah Summers to meet him. And his grandmother says to him, you sounded tense when you called to tell us you were coming. And he says, I'm sorry, it's been a rough few months. So they drive to a back road to get to the cabin, and his grandmother's going to feed him a home-cooked meal. And the narrative caption is interesting. He can barely remember the cabin. Snippets of a past, his brother Alex falling into a snowbank, sleigh riding, tobogganing with Philip down the hillside. Was the air this clean back then? Did he feel this warm inside no matter how cold it was outside? So his grandfather, Philip, says, we want to do whatever we can to help son, we know. And Scott says, the truth. Excuse me, the truth. You deserve to know it. About Madeline and Nathan Christopher, how they lived, how they died, and how they lived again, he says. And I like the way that his wraparound ruby quartz glasses are rendered here by Peterson and Panosian. It looks good to me. And then, not too far away, Seattle, Washington. And interesting here, we have Fabian Nicieza imitating a trope, a motif of Claremont's writing, where whenever Claremont would bring us to a new location, he'd give us a little potted travel log type account of the history of the place or the character of the place. And we have Nicieza doing that here with Seattle, a city which has always been tested by the weather, by the mariners, by drugs, and by its latest billing as grunge metal capital of the world. That'll give you insight into the time period of this story, 1993. Now one of its temporary residents is tested in ways the city has never been. Tested by an accident of birth, tested for designs on death. Anchor image here of, as it turns out, Mesmero being thrown over the balcony of a high-rise apartment building. And who has thrown him out? He's caught onto the ledge of a balcony there. It's the Dark Riders. We haven't seen them since Executioner's Song. They traded allegiance from Apocalypse to Strife. With Strife dead, they're acting on their own and continuing on Apocalypse's philosophy of weeding out the weak from the strong and killing the weak. So they've determined that Mesmero is one of the weak. And he uses his mutant power on Synapse here, who is distracted, and but Gauntlet blows Mesmero away, apparently killing him. And then he turns his attention to their own team member, Synapse, who's got a bad cough here, which is, of course, connected to Strife's legacy virus. And Gauntlet judges Synapse to have been tested and not fit to survive, and blows him away. And interesting sound effect here, fooked. So Synapse is fooked. And then we go to Tokyo, Japan, inside the penthouse apartment of a new player in the burgeoning Asian industrial field. It's Shinobi Shaw, surrounded as ever by a group of men and women, scantily clad, and he is visited by a Japanese crime lord, Nyoirin, who wants to talk to him about Psylocke. And, you know, as I made the observation when he was first seen in issue 17 and 18 of X-Men, that he looks a lot like the Mandarin when he showed up in Uncanny X-Men 256, involved in the creation, transformation of Ninja Psylocke. So kind of an unfortunate character design for this guy, because he's can be mistaken for the Mandarin, but Mandarin doesn't feature in this storyline, at least. So the Nyoirin wants support in relation to a takeover of Clan Yashida, and that is since Mariko's death in issues 56 to 58 of the Wolverine solo series. So Shinobi Shaw is going to support Nyoirin's takeover of Clan Yashida. And what he gets for that is the X-Men killed, any or all of them, the more the merrier. So that's their little agreement, which they drink to. And then, still in Japan, as the moon becomes obscured by clouds over the Nyoirin ancestral home in the Kanagawa prefecture, 4 X-Men make their way through the grounds, tense and uncertain over their mission. Inevitably, what lies inside this ancient home will prove one of the 2 women in their company a liar. So here's the team that is infiltrating the house, and it's Beast and Gambit, who we saw training together in the Danger Room in the previous issue. So they're still a little bit of a duo here. And then, of course, the 2 Psylocks. And they make their way in, sneakily past the sentry guards. Gambit dealing easily with those with his kinetically charged playing cards. And then as they make their way into the entrance hall, we see these ninjas in silhouette waiting for them. And the 2 women bickering, Beast stepping in and saying, "Ladies, do I have to ask you to stop this again?" Gambit here saying they need a good spanking. And Revanche asking him rhetorically, "Are you suicidal, Mr. LeBeau?" So here we have a little bit of action, and that's one of Brandon Peterson's strengths. Action scenes, nice anchor image here of everybody battling these ninjas. Maybe this would have made a better image for the cover, where we can get a better look at Revanche's costume. Also, you know, in terms of the puzzle of this issue, readers who have read and paid attention to issues 17 to 18 know that this character is an agent of Nyoirin's, that she has a wicked agenda. So there's a dramatic irony in terms of the denials of Revanche regarding who she is and her attitude to the X-Men, for those of us familiar with issues 17 and 18. And it takes a little bit out, or it takes a little bit from the tension and drama. So I wonder if it would have been better not to have had those little cameo lead-in scenes with Revanche in issues 17 and 18. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section. So here we've got Gambit observing the similar fighting styles between the two women. Two mirror images of each other, Gambit says. This show is really getting interesting now, though. He says, I like this panel as well. This is well composed. This is a great panel here by Peterson. And so they make their way to this room that Revanche is directing them to, and she says, I'm certain we will find the answers we seek behind those doors. And Psylocke asks, I ask you, how can Revanche know all this without being the traitor she claims me to be? And Revanche says, I have told you, I spent months captive here, degraded in body and soul. When you stole my mind, my very identity, I was a crippled wreck, fed and nursed like an infant. So Gambit is working away at picking the lock. The two women are bickering still. Revanche pulls out her psychic katana, but then Gambit is successful and he opens the door. And what do they see inside? Except for this painting of, well, who does it appear to be? Psylocke. And Beast reads, the piece, translated from the Japanese, is called Kwannon in Repose. Quite a masterful piece of art. The technique is quite impressive, he says. Stay and deal with the inevitable showdown like a man. Wait a minute. Gambit speaks here. Yeah, what a pretty picture. Can I leave now? Stay and deal with the inevitable showdown like a man, says Beast. Unless, of course, you mind if I leave with you. Yeah, I was thrown off there by the placement of the lettering. I think it would have been better if this was down here. It wouldn't have thrown me that way because, you know, the lettering really should take account of reading right to left and down the page. And so, but we don't have a showdown between the two women just yet. Instead, we switch scenes to Tokyo and the penthouse of Shinobi Shaw again, and it looks like his own doppelganger, except it's not his doppelganger, but this is a bad choice on Peterson's part, showing these two guys with the same hairdo and in effect the same facial features. But this is Matsuo Tsurayaba, who was deeply involved in the transformation of Betsy Braddock into Ninja Psylocke. So he's here having an interview with Shinobi Shaw, who is threatening to kill him. Also, another little detail, annoying detail here, is Tsurayaba had his hand chopped off during the Omega Red saga, the first one with Wolverine back in issues 4 to 7 of the title. And it doesn't appear that he's missing his hand or that he's got a bionic hand or a gloved hand or anything like that. So a few poor choices in terms of the art on this page. But Tsurayaba has the news he's delivering, Shinobi Shaw, that has got him so upset is he's had a chat with Games Master and has got the word from Games Master that Tsurayaba is, or not Tsurayaba, but Shinobi Shaw is to lay off Psylocke because Tsurayaba says here, I crafted, he says here, and make no mistake about it, Psylocke is a thing of beauty and her death will be a work of art. So Tsurayaba has got dibs on killing Psylocke, but which Psylocke? Who? Then we switch back to Nyoirin's study with the painting of Kwannon and Gambit asking her, so how about a little talking, Cher? And she says, of all the X-Men, you're the last one I should be explaining anything to. And that is a really fair point. I'm tired of being threatened and branded a liar by my so-called friends, as she knocks his kinetically charged cards out of his hand. We've got a kind of a significant look from her here, a challenging look. And Beast is thinking, but he's caught from behind by, well, they're in Japan, so who else could it be? It's the Silver Samurai. It's a nice anchor image here of the Silver Samurai by Peterson and Panosian. And he says, unfortunately, in order to accomplish this goal, regain the place of honor lost to the clan Yashida, the Silver Samurai must kill you all. Okay, so this is part 2 concluded of the three-part story. Next, the secret of Psylocke revealed. Well, will it or won't it be revealed? And then we do have a letters page here, and what's interesting in the letters page is there's mention of a long shot limited series in the works. That never happened, but there's also mention of Gambit's own limited series, and that did happen, and I will be reviewing that first limited series for Gambit in due course. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men number 21. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.